Hi, Mark.
All right.
Mark, you're muted. Hi, Dave.
No, I'm not.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, David.
Welcome, everybody. I'm just gonna wait just a couple more minutes to see if we have somebody else join, and then I'm thinking I'm just gonna go along with my presentation, and I'm gonna build in some space for people to ask questions. And right now we're a pretty small group, so it might just work to do these questions verbally. However, if you have a question and you just don't want to forget, then just please feel free to just post it in the chat. So, then I will see that too whenever it's time to answer or check out some questions. How does that sound?
Good.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Works for
And
me.
it might be good, during the presentation if you're muted, unless you're talking yourself, just so that we avoid like ringing telephones and dogs barking or whatever. All right. Yeah, I think it's time to get started, and whoever joins us will be able to do that no matter what. If you know somebody who's missing out right now, this recording will be posted on the Oneida County Land and Water Conservation Department webpage, which I will post the URL at the end later. And yeah, I'd like to welcome you to explore the reasons, benefits, and options for lakeshore restoration. And my name is Bärbel Erik. I'm a lakeshore restoration specialist and pollinator coordinator for the Oneida County Land and Water Conservation Department. And maybe you've seen me at some other workshops or somewhere on the road. I'm currently doing a lot of field work in the county and at the lakeshore, so I'm driving around quite a bit. Yeah, so to begin, I'd like to just explore what is the role of lakeshores and how are they special and what do they really mean in our ecology? What's their specific important role? So lakeshores, and I should say all shorelines, because this goes for creeks and river shorelines, as well as essentially ocean shorelines. They provide a transition zone between the medium land and water. And we have a lot of creatures who live in both of these areas. And therefore, they provide a space with very high biodiversity. And they have a really important filter and buffer function for the respective water body. Here are some of the creatures that you probably have seen along the shorelines. Here are a few more northwards creatures. The horak is especially common in the area, so I assume everybody knows them. Yeah, so what are the reasons for restorations? What is the need, where is all this coming from? And Amy just told me that on some of the shorelines on South Blue Lake, you're seeing some erosion or some failing, and I'm not sure, I haven't heard the details on what you're experiencing. I'd like to hear that a little bit more in our discussion. But a lot of reasons that restorations become necessary are really only because our input, the human development, has contributed to a destabilization of the shoreline ecosystem functions. For example, building right at the water edge or mowing right to the water edge, that's not the natural habitat of that area, and that's not supportive to keep its function. So some of the main goals for restoration that we work with as the Land and Water Conservation Department are, of course, to protect our water quality. And we blessed in this area that we have a general very high water quality. And however, that is always impacted by anything that will be contributing to flow into, and that can be coming from runoff from storms, that's runoff over grass, bringing in pesticides or fertilizer, that's runoff down the driveway, bringing any kind of chemicals that our parked vehicles might be leaking, pet waste, you know, as the picture over here to our left shows, all kinds of things can be coming into the water body. And the house on the right side is probably a pretty extreme example, but this is runoff that can be happening, especially with unexpected, very big rain events. Then, of course, our other goal is to conserve the soil quality. And soil essentially, you know, is the filter function between anything that percolates through from the soil surface will be changed and filtered and buffered before it ever hits the groundwater or the actual water surface of a water body. So soil prevents erosion, it stabilizes the shoreline, and it's also a natural flood prevention. And as I said, it's a main filter. So down on the bottom, you see a really natural shoreline from a wetland bog boundary. This photo was taken just after the tornado in July 2019. And this is along the Wisconsin River with a shoreline that's been mowed way too close to the edge for a long time, and therefore just doesn't have the root systems to hold it strong anymore. Yeah. So we like to promote supporting actions to restabilize, and that of course, as you see here, one is building healthy habitat. Here you see a before and after picture of a steep slope right down to the lake that has mostly lawn vegetation. And after the restorative measure was to put some native plantings in, which will have a root system that holds the soil together much stronger than the typical fescue that we have in our lawns. Another picture here that shows how native plantings can be used in order to create a transition zone. And another big benefit of having native plantings like this is also that they promote healthy habitat for pollinators, and that's essentially our bees and butterflies, which many of you probably already know are in somewhat of a troubled situation across the globe. So it's nice to address two problems at once, essentially. Yeah, another supporting action is to filter stormwater and divert flow. And here you see some examples of a rock infiltration pit that's just adjacent to the driveway. So any runoff that's coming down this driveway is guided into this filtration pit, and that will allow for only clean water to go down into the groundwater and then down to the lakeshore. Here's another, this is a mix of a diversion and a infiltration pit, also with a rain garden here. And up here, you see some other examples of buffer functions through filtrations. This might be a good moment. Does anybody have a question up until now? Okay. Yeah, so another great measure to use for runoff filtration and also enhancement of habitat is a rain garden. And that is not specific to a lakeshore, as you may imagine, but it's one of these, I should be a little bit more clear about these practices or measures that I've been introducing, which are again the buffer zone native plantings, runoff filtration with filtration pits, and the diversion along with the rain garden. All are best management practices that belong to a program called Healthy Lakes and Rivers, which I will talk more about a little later. These are very popular and effective measures. So as you see, this rain garden basically catches the runoff coming off the downspout here and lets the water flow in there. It's built in a way that it kind of functions as a bowl that then the water will percolate through in a vertical way and then go down into the water body there. So any runoff that's coming off the yard, off the roof, all of that will be filtered. And a typical situation for rain gardens is that you would be using native wetland plants that also provide healthy habitat for bees and butterflies. Yeah, what are the benefits of restored shorelines? And let's look at that from a human standpoint first. So one of the big things that we always run into is that we want to have more time for fun things, right? So to have less area to mow and have native plantings actually doesn't need much maintenance. So you gain all the time that you usually spend mowing, and you can do something else with that. Geese, they're very attracted to a shoreline like right here because they love grass. If there's plantings up just at the edge, they won't come on the property. It's deterring them. They're not feeling like that's their habitat. So you'll run into a lot less goose scat on your property. And a big important point for many people is that actually the property value increases when you have a healthy lakeshore. Along with, aquatic invasive species in the lake, it's a decreased property value if you have just mowed lawn. So we all benefit from increased property value. For nature, of course, along with humans, we all benefit from less fertilizer and less pesticides applied because they won't be running into our water body. They won't affect our drinking water quality. They won't impact our fish that we like to go fishing for. And In general, we have a more natural and healthy habitat on land and in water. The water quality and the soil are in a better condition. Yeah, this is another good moment to see if anybody has questions.
I do. And if I lose you, it's because I'm on my last ticks of my phone's battery here, but I will come back once I get home and plug in again. But it seemed that a few years ago, there was like a state statute or a law about how people could alter their shoreline. Is there still that wording as far as state law, or is it's a recommendation to do restoration and here's how you do it? If you're going to change your shoreline, we would like you to do it this way versus it being a rule or a law that we have to follow.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused with the question. Are you asking whether the state regulates how you need to restore?
Yes. Or
okay.
if so, for instance, on our lake, we don't have, and it's going to be a longer question here, we don't have much problem with geese. There are a few families that have lawns. In some cases, it's just, we have so many trees that it's hard to get even a lawn to grow, or bushes or shrubs other than the native species, which would be hemlock and white pine and red pine, that kind of thing. So I think, you know, given that we could put in as we go from like literally right up to the water. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I guess what I'm wondering is if we go right up to the water, is that where the state would regulate anything? It's like water and land right there on the edge. What you're talking about mostly is what happens, say, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 feet away from the water's edge. So what about at the water's edge?
Well, actually those buffer zones are right at the water's edge.
Okay.
And, you know, at this moment, there's some regulations, yes, and it all depends on where you're coming from. If you're building there, if you're putting a path in there, if you want to put a porch or a deck or, you know, anything in there, that will be a zoning question, for example. That's okay. In the 35-foot line from ordinary high water mark. However, in reference to these native plantings, well, we recommend that buffer zone to be at least 6 feet. If it can be wider, the better is.
Okay.
I'm not sure where you're going with this question with the restoration requirements, because there isn't a requirement that everybody has to restore their shoreline that I'm aware of.
Right.
There may be requirements in order to fit certain funding programs. That's a different thing.
I think what I'm getting at is when you take a spin around our lake, you see various people, including my family, who have tried to keep the shoreline from eroding for the last 50 years via different methods than what you're talking about. And I thought, for instance, just to cite one example, that a person could not use retaining wall block to, because you're altering the native aspect of your shoreline, or a seawall, that you couldn't put in a seawall, or you couldn't use railroad ties, or you couldn't use logs. So I guess I'm just do what you want.
Yeah, your communication was distorted for a moment, but yes, everything that you mentioned is regulated through the zoning department.
Okay.
So what we're looking at, if you want to use any kind of hardscaping, riprap or whatever, that is more a question of, depending on the water body, whether the DNR would have any restrictions there. We, as a Land and Water Conservation Department, may recommend rubber, but we may also recommend a totally different material that will not actually be a hardscape, but be more like a fiber log or soil-filled bags, or something that will allow for plantings to go in, because a very strong stabilization aspect is to have vegetation.
Yeah, I just looked at I think it's called Coir, C-O-I-R. It's made with coconut and jute, and you can put that in along with smaller rock and gradually go towards the lakeshore that way to absorb wave action and to make room for native plantings. You recommend?
Yeah, we do use that, or we do recommend it. Essentially we design restoration plans that where we would make the suggestions for that material, but there's also some other, there's a number of very similar products that may have some different names. One might be Enviolog, one might be Biolog, it might be purple fiber rather than coconut. There's a number of different options there, and including a buildup of soil-filled bags that you can plant into that will essentially create a new slope. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll keep listening here and see what else I can learn from what you've been telling. I guess at some point I was going to ask the question then too, what specifically are these native plants that you would be referring to?
Okay. Yeah, I would like to get back to that question. Okay. At this moment, I would like to go into where do we start? If anybody is interested in lakeshore restoration, what's the beginning point? And we as a department have encountered actually that a lot of people have a desire to restore their shoreline, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it, or where to turn to, or where to apply for funding support. And that has led to that my department applied for our own grant, and that's essentially my position now, which helps that we can reach out and work with lake associations and support them and homeowners, of course, and finding ways to get started in some way. So our grant is a supporting measure for a targeted approach to lakeshore restoration. And we received that grant in 2020. Due to the pandemic, I think we're gonna get an extra year of extension. So I'll be in this position yet another 1.5 years on that grant. So what we can do and what I can support with is assess shorelines and collect data from already assessed shorelines. I can identify priority areas for shoreline improvement. I am promoting the funding options county cost share and healthy lakes and rivers program. And I'm supporting the installation of practices on the landscape. And as a lake association that I have not worked with you before, I'd like to introduce the Healthy Lakes and Rivers program. It's a program that's run by the Wisconsin DNR, and it needs to be applied for by the respective lake association. So, for example, this is coming up this fall. If South Blue Lake Association would like to apply for this grant, and they're very, they're the individual practices that I've been mentioning, the stormwater runoff and diversion, the native plantings, fish sticks, and rain gardens. So any of these will receive up to $1,000 each if a homeowner decides to do that. However, they're very DIY oriented. It takes a motivated homeowner to do this. And if you're bored, or I'm not sure how the South Blue Lake Association is organized, has questions about this, I am entirely happy to support and answer questions and explore this option with you. It will probably need to be on the soon side. And then we also promote the county cost share program. And that's a program that runs in every county and supplies state funding to eligible homeowners, which would engage in the program directly, so that it's not through another organization or another grant program. It would be directly negotiated between the Oneida County Land and Water Conservation Department and the homeowner. And I put some resources together. You can maybe take a photo, or like I said, this presentation is going to be available from our website, the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website, then the County Cost Share Program. The third link is to a brand new shoreline restoration guide that really answers a lot of questions. It's geared towards homeowners and organizations. And the last tab is also on our webpage, OCLW's Oneida County Land and Water Conservation Department. So oclw.org is our webpage. And this is another tab that's geared to easy access for resources. Yeah. And now I'm ready to take more questions or address the native plantings. Are there any questions right now to the material that I just shared?
I think one of the biggest things on our lake is, because it's a small lake, it's 95 acres roughly, and we get a lot of erosion. Ava, I know over on your shoreline, there's like on Corbin's shoreline, there's a lot of erosion over there. And I'm not sure how, like what would be the best way to stop that erosion? I mean, we can't stop boats from running on our lake because it's enjoyment for a lot of people on our lake. But I think there's something that needs to be done over on, and I think, is that the West Shoreline maybe? I mean, you can see tree roots that just from the water, washing up due to waves and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of, and, Eva or Mark, step in if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we're looking for as far as shoreline restoration, and how do we fix that?
Yeah, I'm on that shoreline and it's a mess.
Yeah,
we're going to lose trees fast. It's serious.
Yeah, I think that's the West Shoreline, is it, Mary? I mean, because I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking where the sun goes down, it's in our backyard, so yeah.
Okay. So kind of the northwest area. And I know Joel Lehman on the the west side of the lake too, he's talked about this. And, when you look at the long-term picture, yes, the water levels rise and the water levels fall. We had 10 feet of beach, now we have no beach, and we're probably 18 inches higher in water depth than we were 14 years ago, 15 years ago. And this is a year when there's been less water, but it's still going up and over whatever protective elements we've built. And so people have just tried to scramble to keep their shoreline from washing away. So I just looked this up before I knew this meeting was going to happen. I looked it up like 2 weeks ago, and I sent my brothers a couple of videos of where, they bring in these landscaping crews and they sculpt the shoreline to like a gradual slope. And then they use these coir logs, which are, like you mentioned, bearable, a combination of, in this case, coconut, and then wrapped with jute, and it looks like a log and it absorbs water. And you tuck that into your shoreline and you put that on a gravel base. I don't even know how we could begin to start that when you say, where do we start? Because the water's so high. You have to create, what do you call it? Like a waterless area to be able to work on this. You know, and then some of us are built kind of on a hill, so you can't even really bring in heavy equipment to do this. It's almost like you said, it's got to be done by hand, and we're very much a do-it-yourself kind of a group. Rock, as we found, is cheap. You know, we can keep dropping in 4 to 8 inch boulders or rocks, 4 to 8 inch rocks, or 8 to 12. I don't think that's the best way to do it. But it's the height of the water, the depth of the water right now almost makes it too hard to do the shoreline restoration without putting in like a waterless barrier to be able to work in there. But then how do you get equipment in there? How do you get materials?
Well, first of all, I'd like to let everybody know that our department offers consultations and, you know, comes to sites to check out what may be needed. What you're describing, you know, for one, nothing in nature is ever going to stay the same. So, you know, the shorelines change no matter what. However, any kind of, like where we're going into with the logs, rocks, any of that, for example, isn't qualified to the Healthy Lakes Grant. The Healthy Lakes Grant is only addressing small practices. The ones that you know, that I mentioned, fish sticks, infiltration pits, diversion, rain gardens, and the plantings. What you're describing is a need probably of soil-filled banks, maybe riprap, maybe the Envirolog. There may be big things going on. And in order for me to really tell you what to do there, I have to see that. You know, that's impossible for me to go over. I'd be just putting things out without actually seeing you you know, the individual space. And they may be all different from each other, depending on where they're located in the, you know, on the lake. But what you know, it is possible to put in riprap and then on top of that soil-filled banks to stabilize exposed roots and put other plantings in there to have a new stability. And the landscaping contractors who do this kind of work, if they have to, they come on barges to transport material. They build chutes down on hilly slopes to you know, not have a low impact transport of material. There's a lot of options. You know, you don't know. I've seen some slopes that I would have never imagined to be happening here. In fact, I recently saw somebody who built a little train to get down to his lakeshore up from the house. It's probably a 50-yard drop on Lake Tomahawk. So, you know, we're talking, humankind has come up with bigger problems than this and solutions to them. So, like I said, you know, we can come and check things out, but I can't tell you what to do without actually seeing anything.
Out of curiosity, to what degree do speedboats play into erosion problems?
Yeah, that's a good question, and there's more coming out on that. You know, there's also with the speedboats. Are you referring to the wake boats?
Just, you know, a lot of people water skiing with 200 horsepower.
Well, of course, that changes the wave action.
I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong, but it seems to me it's got to be playing into erosion somehow.
Oh, I'm sure. You know, any waves that are additional waves will be part of that. Yeah.
So we live next door to big, fast, often run boats. And we have, I feel, some issues that have to be dealt with now. And we're talking about bringing in some stone to at least attempt some riprap. I don't know if you all have seen Hilgeman's new place that is just complete riprap down past Sosha's, and not Dan, but Pat Sosha. So it goes Kruger's, us, I can't remember, Diane, and then Sosha's, and then Corbin's, right? And then I think Hilgeman, and he's got huge, his shoreline is beautiful with a multi-layered riprap. I don't want to do that until we're sure that that will help. But for right now, do you think we can just start stacking some rock in the most vulnerable spots?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm saying that again without seeing your place. And I'm gonna, is everybody had a chance to take a photo of the resources, then I'm gonna turn the screen share off. Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a physical power situation going on with that I've seen relatively often. If people go ahead and think, oh, we're gonna place some rock, but they're not really understanding the complete dynamic that's going on with water, that actually may increase the problem. Because if you place rock just into the soil there, it creates narrow tunnels between rocks, which will then have water go in, and it increases the suction power of the wave going back out. So it slowly digs out the shoreline. And in order, like the landscaping companies who do this professionally, you line the shoreline with a fabric that basically is a transition between the rock and the actual soil medium, so that suction power doesn't go through. And the suction power will drag out sediment and basically undercut more.
Is that
it's called capillary action.
Is that fabric like a landscaping tarp, or is it something thicker, more longer lasting?
Well, it's a special fabric for this purpose. I'm not sure what brand. There's different options. And I'm sure if you would like to, you can go ahead and call some contractors and see what they're using. If you want to get ideas for prices or any of that, certainly. But I can't recommend a contractor or a brand.
Okay.
We have certain contractors that we work with, and I'm happy to provide a contractor list if that's of interest to you. And again, the county cost share program might be of interest to some of you. It provides up to 50% or a cap of I believe, I'm not sure, we're just changing the amount. I think it's $12,000 cap. So if you're interested in that, that would be for 2022, obviously. Yeah.
We did the cost share program here, and I put that in the chat. We used it for runoff from our barn. We have a barn because we have horses, and we were concerned about runoff to local waterways. And that was a 70%, 30% program. Is that what it is in Oneida County also? 70% paid by the county and 30% paid by the property owner?
No, in Oneida County, it's a 50% maximum.
Okay.
Or $12,000, whichever comes first.
Well, I think it would be really beneficial for the property owners who are concerned about erosion, which should pretty much be anybody on the main lake as opposed to the bay, to have consultation done about what's going on, because it's not just runoff from the properties, and again, we don't have many lawns, but I think a lot of us have been turning to rock, and I totally understand what you're saying about the rivulets and the suction pulling things away. I guess out of ignorance, maybe we didn't know what else we could do, but it's even undercutting our banks where there is no rock. And yes, trees are going to start falling in, buildings are going to start falling in. It's getting pretty dire. We just have a lake association. We are not like a governing body really or anything, but I know in southern Wisconsin, when the water's really high, like it is in the spring, there's a no wake rule and people have to follow that. But that's when you have lake police. And I don't think we're going to get any of that. So as long as we have boats and we have high water, we're going to have erosion. And this is probably very common in Oneida, Vilas, Marathon counties with all the lakes and the water that has increased over the last, say, 10 years, and property owners and just bigger boats in general and boat traffic. So we can't be the only lake having this discussion and
oh no, yeah, there's many.
Yeah, I believe
in
it.
fact, over the last 2 years, the requests for consultations, site visits, and funding have exploded.
Yeah, I believe it.
Mm. Yeah, if you have an interest in site visits, just send us an email and I'll put mine and my my boss is Michelle Sadauskas. She's primarily responsible for the county cost share program, but I'm her assistant in many ways on that. I'm gonna give you her email and my own, and we are open to checking things out.
Okay.
What would it take to bring you out here? Do we just email you and like set up a date, or because
if you have many homeowners that have the same questions or the same concern, it certainly would be ideal to combine, like basically to be efficient with the timing.
Right. So like
it would take probably that you email both of us, Michelle and myself, and then we'll figure out how we would address the situation, and find a time that we could come, or one of us would come and check out a number of properties.
Because it seems to be that Western Shoreline, doesn't it, Eva? More.
Yeah, I guess the bike trail seems, but that's got a lot of boulders. That's got a lot of history. That's just been beefed up over the years. The bike trail area probably.
Yeah. Is that the Bearskin bike trail?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I think over by, let's see, that would be the East Shore. That doesn't seem to be too bad. Yeah, I think it is really just the North and the West Shore.
Is everybody on the call on the North or the West Shore?
I'm on the North Shore, and actually for the first time this year, I noticed some erosion. It doesn't seem to me to be really bad, but probably something somebody should look at.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I can speak for the 4 or 5 properties on the West Shore that there's a lot of reeds by Pat Socha's, so I don't ever get up in those. But where those of us that have actual shoreline, I would say I think it would be worth your while to come in, and we would.
It's always worth my while, but it doesn't mean I always know what to say or what to do, or I can say this is going to qualify for a funding program. But yeah, if you just would like some input, I'm sure we can get that going. We also get help from an engineer from the Department of Agriculture and Trade and Consumer Protection of Wisconsin, and in areas where we need support, especially when it comes to difficulties in decision making on the hardscaping, like rocks, or we usually ask her for input, so we also get help with that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me maybe we need to have a vehicle where we make homeowners aware of the opportunity to get someone out, and then create a list so that if we get someone out to view the lake, they can do 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 properties all in one shot.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, that's 20 would be too many for a day, but but yeah,
Well,
if you have, that's a really good idea to move ahead and, you know, come up with a list. That would be perfect.
Yeah. My lot's 67 feet wide, so I'm sure he could do 20 of mine in a day.
It's not about the width, it's about actually seeing the problems. But you know, if there's a combined effort like that, it's probably essentially I would be telling the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And if we look at one property and there's a number of people, then that might apply to their own property, and it's probably more efficient that way. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a question then, kind of on I guess it's like almost like a guilt thing where I want to ask it. Years ago, I think you couldn't build, for instance, a boathouse right next to the water. And again, it goes back to the law, I think, whether it was a DNR or zoning that governed this. And now I think people can put, it's either going to be called a boathouse or a garage, really close to the wall. Or if they're rebuilding a cottage, if they're in the original footprint, they can build pretty close to the water, which I always think is interesting because it creates this non-permeable surface, and it does create runoff right into the lake, or really close to the lake. So does even, like, okay, in my case, then we had this little old boathouse that we made into kind of a bathhouse. And from that, we built like a little bit of a deck. I even just wonder if that's even legal, and is that contributing to shoreline erosion? And if somebody comes in, are they going to say, okay, if you want to restore, you need to tear all this out?
Well, I am not part of the zoning department. Building a structure is a question to the zoning department. If somebody is asking for state funding, a situation like that could come up.
Sure.
But in order to, you know, give input, that's not going to be something that I'm not going to tell you what to do. But yeah, it just depends on where you want to go with these kind of questions. You know, like I said, as soon as state funding is involved, there might be a request that something needs to be taken out because it's not beneficial, and you know, we can't give out this money.
Yeah,
when we know there's a counter indication to the success.
Yes, I understand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned a list of native plants earlier that might work well along the shoreline. That would be good if we could get such a list. Yeah.
So we have a very big list for this, and you know, there's very many plants who can work, that can work. They vary a little bit in what the best application is, but I'm certainly willing to send lists of the contractors and of the plans. At this moment, I have Amy's email, and I can send Amy these things. And if you want to distribute them, if that works. Do you know each other?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. We're like friends.
Yeah.
But does Amy have everybody's email?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm the secretary of the Lake Association.
Okay.
So I can distribute anything that via email that you have and want to distribute. I did distribute the booklets and stuff like that at the Lake Association meeting that I picked up at the courthouse.
Yeah, great.
I did distribute that at the Lake Association meeting as well.
Yeah. Okay, well then I will email you the plant list and the contractor list. I'm gonna need to write myself a note.
I just really think that our west shoreline is, I mean, I kayaked around the lake yesterday and I just really noticed that west shoreline is really starting to erode really badly. Yeah, I mean, Eva, your house, and then Corbin's next door. Is really bad, but
yeah. Even one of the kids the other day asked, "Did this shoreline just continue to go straight years ago?" And I said, "Yeah, and it's probably back one section of it where we don't have the logs and the pipes, which are so unsightly. But yeah, that's just the way it's been for the last 40 years. You know, when we bought the place, that's what was there. And we just kind of continued it. That's back, well, at least 4 to 6 feet in different places. Yeah. And under our dock, it's gone. I just looked under there the other day. It goes 3 feet under the, like the dirt. You've got about 8 inches of dirt, and then it cuts in under that. There's water. It's crazy. Yeah.
And by dirt, it's sand.
Right.
I mean, we have a sandy area around here. So
yeah.
You know, it's amazing that buildings aren't sliding into that lake yet.
I know, right.
If you go out again and kayak, tuck up into our shoreline. We have a bench on the end of the dock. Excuse me. And you will be amazed. There's a tree there that's going to go.
Okay.
And it's gotten so much worse in the last 5 years. I agree. By feet.
Yeah, it's and it just seems like it's the west shoreline mainly. The east shoreline over by the Bearskin Trail, I think that's just nature doing natural things. But I think that west shoreline, I'm not sure what's going on over there, but it's got to be a combination of boat waves. And I'm not anti-boat. Don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-boat, but I think the size of motor on a boat on our lake could perhaps be discussed. But I mean, I'm not tubing 5 kids at a time, so I don't know. I don't know. We don't even have a boat, so.
Yeah, we don't either.
Well, yeah. How does it sit like at your annual meeting and now from this conversation? Do you think there's enough interest to beyond this group right now that there would be a big list of property owners or?
I think on that west shoreline, yeah.
Yeah.
10 property owners, probably. It's just a guess.
Yeah, I would have guessed 10 probably.
I would say Joel and for sure Corbin's at the same time. And the new people on the point, it's a Smith, but I don't know.
It's my niece.
Okay, there you go.
Amy Perka.
Okay. Yeah, I think they would all be interested. This is just an example. A few years ago, there was a native bush, let's just call it, that grows into the hillside and it goes out over the water. And then the fish kind of live under there. The little fish, hide. It's a wonderful plant to protect the shoreline. But as the water came up, that all died. When the waters rose in the last 3 years, a lot, or 5 years, all of that died. So we lost some of that protection. So, I think what you said is very true. Nature keeps changing things on us. It kind of keeps changing the water depths, and, winter has some bearing on it. But I think we're not going to be able to do something that's completely enduring, but I think all of us are interested in keeping what we have. And what people have been doing has been so hopscotch. There's retaining wall block, there's logs with pipes holding them in, there's railroad ties, there's more rock, there's sand, there's trees and bushes. It's just whatever people have been able to do. So if we had a coordinated effort, if people were going to, going forward, and that was my point about my Facebook post about the choices of boats that people make going forward, if we could just begin to alter our thinking and our doing a little bit, it will make a difference slowly.
Yeah. Well, I'm entirely good with addressing and helping the working with your lake, and whenever you have a list, or if it doesn't come to that, and will be out there. I know that it will probably be a little bit till we would be ready for more site visits. We are just catching up with our 2021, but we can also do site visits still into the fall.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think if people knew when you were coming, those who were interested would try to be there to hear it firsthand. A person literally can walk around with a phone. If you were on their property and they weren't there, we can record, or we can do FaceTime if there's signal.
Yeah.
There are ways to communicate it to the interested parties, I'm sure, if they can't be there.
Well, I think anything that we do can be posted to our Facebook, our South Blue Lake Facebook page, and people can access it there. But I mean, could we set up a date? I mean, like, Eva, are you going to be up and around anytime soon, or are you up now, or?
I at best would be there like the 14th, 15th.
Okay.
But for sure the weekend after that, and for sure Labor Day weekend. But I could get there that Friday. Okay. And Joel would be in the same boat. Corbin's are up there all the time.
So one thing that you need to know, in general, we can also look at properties and the homeowner doesn't have to be there. In your cases, the more people, it's going to be harder to coordinate, but we'll work with you. I'm not sure. I'm not ready. I wouldn't be ready to set up a date right now. I would need to talk with my boss, Michelle, and I'm personally going to be out of the country here for a month really soon. I have another job that I'm working for. I'm teaching some classes in Germany here very soon.
Geht's auch, wenn ich auch auf Deutsch Ihnen überrede, dass Sie zu uns kommen können und nicht nach Deutschland, und dass Sie für uns arbeiten können und nicht nach Deutschland?
Yeah, well.
Sehr gut.
Yeah, danke. Yeah. No, that was bad German. It's like all of a sudden I can't speak German today or something. But no, you have the same name as my cousin in Germany. I've never seen that name outside of Germany. And I teach high school German, so I should be up on my German, but I haven't spoken it now for 2 months, so I'm a little rusty.
Well, that was an impressive surprise.
I figured it would shock you a little
my
bit.
native language is German.
Yeah.
But well, at this moment, these workshops have been waiting for over a year. They were planned for last year, so I don't think I can very easily cancel them anymore to come to Blue Lake. But
that's okay.
Anyway, so where I'm coming from is that it would probably be helpful to have some, even within this group, who seems to maybe be the most interested since you made it to this meeting, that you come up with dates where you're there, if that is your strong desire to be on the property, and then we'll go from there. And like I said, I'd have to involve Michelle and seeing what she says to others. How does that sound?
Are you available on weekends, or should it be during the week?
I would prefer during the week. If it comes to that weekends are the only option, I may be willing to make an exception and change my schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
But am I hearing you say not August and probably not September, or what?
Well, so what I'm looking at, I'm personally going to be gone from August 19th to September 27th. But I'm not the only one who could do these site visits.
Okay.
But if Michelle wants me to do this, then it would have to be probably in the end of September at this point.
Okay. And I think if you all just get a date, we'll just make it a point to be there or do the FaceTime, like you said. We'll figure it out. But we'll just go with the majority, whatever is easiest for everybody.
Are all of you year-round residents here?
No.
No. Okay.
Not here.
Where do you live? Otherwise.
I'm in the Chicago area now.
Okay.
I'm in Madison, so it's not far.
And I'm north of Milwaukee.
Okay. And Amy?
I'm in Neenah, which is
yeah, it's 4 hours. Yeah.
40, well, it's about a 2-hour drive from here. I mean, it's just south of Appleton, just south of Green Bay, but it's not a horrible drive to get here, you know.
Yeah, no, but I get it. You're the most interested. None of you live here permanently. So yeah, it would probably be good to come up with a date that works best then.
Okay.
Okay.
And yeah, and you know, I would be okay to come on a Saturday if that was needed.
Maybe what we could do is put together a little Facebook poll that just says, if you're interested, do these 3 dates work for you or something, and just see what people say about coming to meet somebody on those particular days. Like we pick like 2 Fridays or something and a Saturday or something.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I can talk with Michelle tomorrow and see whether there may be another option for site visits while I'm gone, or other, you know, what the time period is that is available here.
Okay.
I would probably augment it with an blast email out to everyone too.
Okay.
I'm a regular Facebook user. I go on once a year, whether I need it or not. So.
Okay. Yeah, I can send out. The only problem in my experiences with putting out dates, if you put out 3 dates, nobody's going to make it all on one. So I'm wondering if we should just pick a date and say, this is it. And, you know.
I would suggest a subgroup pick a date.
Okay.
You know, this group or this group plus a couple people say this date works, and then just announce to everyone else, this is the date.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just put a date out there and I mean, if people can make it, great. If they can't, you know, we'll try and speak on their behalf, but I would several dates out there.
That we include the information about what Bearable just shared with us, so that they watch this video. Sorry, dog wants his ball. That we include the video, that they watch that ahead of time, that they understand about native plantings and they understand rain gardens, etc. So they're not coming into this just saying, hey, look at my shoreline, tell me what I can do, you know.
Yeah, that would probably be good. And I would encourage all of you to browse the oclw.org webpage, because there's really a lot more information than I can provide in one presentation.
Sure.
Bearable, can you would we be able to post on our Facebook page the link to this video?
You will, but it's gonna be, you know, my office manager is probably gonna upload it possibly already tomorrow.
Okay.
But once I have the link, I'm happy to send that to you.
Okay, once you have the link, if you can send that to me, that way I can email it out to
our in fact, she can probably send that to we actually do have the emails of the people who registered, which was more than who's here right now.
Okay.
So we may be able to just send that to everybody. I have to check that out with her.
Okay. If you could send it to me, and then I can get it out to our membership. And then I don't know, Eva and Mark and Mary, if you want to be part of a subgroup that puts together a date, you know, to have, I guess I would prefer Bearable to come out because she ran the meeting today, but I understand that, you know, I like having a face that I kind of recognize, but that's just me.
That's sweet. Yeah. Let's see. I will talk with Michelle tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, maybe to have somebody come out and just see what recommendations that you can make to preserve our eroding shoreline.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful. You know, it's always beneficial if there's a group reaching out, because the more people make a change on your lake, the better it's gonna be for the whole. Because every riprap that goes in next door changes the dynamic, you know, just one property down. It's all connected.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think what we have been looking at over the years as, oh, this looks really nice. This is clean. This is clean cut. This is, you know, it's maybe not the best way to do it. And we just need to be educated about the best way to do it. And boy, wouldn't it be nice if we are all educated about it, and then we can help each other do this, you know, because it sounds like, I mean, we have older people, we have younger people, we have a lot of teenagers, we have, you know, and a lot of these families, they buy on this lake and they are there for generations. So we would all be investing in a healthier, cleaner, better lake for future generations then too.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to sign off. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I look forward to hearing.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That sounds
all
good.
right.
Thank you so much, Bell, for your time this evening.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice meeting everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Meeting you too.
Viel Spaß beim
Tschüss.
Eva and Mary, I'll reach out to you via email, and Mark as well. And maybe if you guys can throw a date together, and then I'll throw it over to Bear Bill and Michelle and see what they can do, you know, probably later in fall.
That sounds great.
Does that sound okay? Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, thanks for organizing.
Yeah,
thanks,
no problem.
everybody.
All right. You guys take care.
Thank you, Deborah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay.